I was 62 when I died, and in those 3 seconds between my last breath and the silence that followed, I learned something that changed everything I thought I knew about eternity. My name is Margaret Eleanor Hathaway. I lived in a small town called Ridgemont, a place where the fog rolls in every morning like a gray blanket trying to smother the world, where the streets are lined with oak trees that have witnessed more funerals than weddings, where people know your name, but not your story. I died on October 14th, 2019, at 6:47 in the evening, just as the sun was beginning to set behind the hills, painting the sky in shades of amber and ash. A sudden cardiac arrest. No warning. No goodbye. No time to prepare. Just 3 seconds. 3 seconds that felt like an eternity and a heartbeat all at once. And in those 3 seconds, I saw what most people spend their entire lives wondering about, fearing, hoping for, and running from. Before we continue, before I take you any deeper into what happened to me, I need you to do something with me. It's important. Close your eyes for 3 seconds and whisper the word light. Just once. Softly. Like a secret you're sharing with the universe. If you feel something move inside you, even the smallest flutter in your chest, even the faintest whisper in your soul, then this message is meant for you. The light still speaks. And it's speaking right now. Not through me. Through something much bigger than me. I don't know why you're here. Watching this. Listening to my voice in whatever moment you're in. Maybe you're searching. Maybe you're hurting. Maybe you're curious. Maybe you're afraid. But I know that nothing happens by accident. Every moment is a divine appointment. So stay. Stay with me. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't just my story. It's a mirror. And when you look into it, you might see yourself staring back. I wasn't a bad person. That's what I told myself for decades. I went to church most Sundays, sitting in the same pew, 3rd row from the front on the left side, the wood worn smooth from years of bodies pressing against it. I prayed before meals when I remembered, the words flowing automatically, mechanically, without thought or feeling. I donated to charity at Christmas, writing checks with my name on them, feeling that small burst of satisfaction that comes from doing the right thing. I was kind to my neighbors. I smiled at strangers in the grocery store. I held doors open for people. I said please and thank you. I never stole. I never cheated. I never hurt anyone intentionally. I followed the rules. I was good. Or at least I thought I was. But here's the truth I didn't know until it was almost too late. The truth that no one tells you in Sunday school, or in those self-help books, or in those motivational speeches. Being good isn't the same as being awake. Being righteous isn't the same as being alive. You can follow every commandment, check every box, say every prayer, and still be asleep, still be empty, still be lost. My life was a routine, a loop, a pattern that repeated itself day after day, year after year, until time itself became meaningless. I woke up at 6 every morning to the sound of the same alarm clock, that harsh buzzing that jolted me out of whatever dreams I was having. Dreams I could never remember. The same coffee mug with the faded blue flowers. A gift from my mother who had been gone for 15 years. The same view from my kitchen window. A small bird feeder swaying in the wind. Empty most days because I forgot to fill it. The same gray sky that seemed to press down on the world like a lid on a jar. The same quiet hum of the refrigerator. The only sound in a house that had forgotten how to laugh. I lived alone. My husband Thomas had passed 11 years before. Cancer. It started in his lungs and spread like wildfire, consuming him from the inside out. He fought hard. He took the treatments. He endured the pain. He smiled when the doctors lied to him about his chances. He held my hand when he was too weak to speak. And in the end, he lost. Everyone loses eventually. And after he was gone, the house became too big and too quiet, and too full of memories that hurt to touch. His chair sat empty in the living room, his coffee mug still in the cabinet, his coat still hanging by the door. I couldn't bring myself to move them, so I lived around them. I lived in the spaces between his absence, I filled the silence with television, letting the voices of strangers wash over me like white noise. With crossword puzzles, filling in little boxes with words that meant nothing. With long walks that went nowhere. Just circling the same blocks over and over. Watching the seasons change. Watching the trees lose their leaves and grow them back. Watching the world move forward while I stood still. I told myself I was fine. I told myself I was coping. I told myself I was faithful. I went to church and sang the hymns, my voice blending with the others, indistinguishable, unremarkable. But I didn't feel them. I mouthed the words, but my heart wasn't in it. I prayed, but it felt like talking to the ceiling, like sending letters to an address that didn't exist. I believed in God, but I didn't know Him. Not really. Not in the way you know someone you've spent time with, someone who has held you when you cried, someone who has laughed with you when you were joyful. He was a concept, an idea, a distant king in a faraway kingdom. And I was just a subject, paying my taxes, following the laws, hoping that would be enough. And that was the problem. That was the lie I lived in. The day I died started like every other day. I remember the light coming through the window, thin and pale and cold. The kind of light that doesn't warm you, that doesn't reach inside. I made my coffee in the same blue-flowered mug, stirring in the same 2 teaspoons of sugar and splash of cream. I sat at the table in the same wooden chair that creaked when I shifted my weight. I opened the newspaper, but I didn't read it. I just stared at the ink, at the headlines about wars and elections and celebrities I didn't care about, at the obituaries of people I never knew. My chest felt heavy. It had felt heavy for weeks. Months, maybe. A pressure that came and went. A tightness that made it hard to take deep breaths. But I ignored it. I thought it was grief. I thought it was age. I thought it was just life. The weight we all carry. The burden of being human. I didn't know it was my body preparing to let go, sending out signals I was too distracted to hear. Around noon, I decided to go to the grocery store. I didn't need anything in particular. I just needed to get out of the house, to move, to feel like I had a purpose. I drove the same route I always drove. Past the elementary school with its empty playground. Past the fire station with its red trucks gleaming in the weak sunlight. Past the church with its white steeple pointing toward heaven like an accusation. I parked in the same spot near the back of the lot, away from other cars because I didn't like the risk of someone denting my door. I remember walking through the automatic doors, the rush of warm air, the smell of fresh bread and floor cleaner. I remember the fluorescent lights humming overhead, harsh and bright and unforgiving, the hum of the freezers, the squeaking of cartwheels, the murmur of conversations I wasn't part of. I bought the same things I always bought. A gallon of milk that I would drink half of before it expired. A dozen eggs that I would eat 2 of, and let the rest sit in the refrigerator until I threw them away. A small loaf of rye bread. A jar of strawberry jam. A package of butter. A bag of apples. A box of tea. Everything routine. Everything predictable. Everything safe. I walked through the aisles slowly, in no hurry to get home. In no hurry to return to the silence. I passed other shoppers. People with full carts and purpose in their eyes. People buying ingredients for family dinners. People planning meals and lives and futures. And I felt invisible. Like a ghost wandering through the world of the living. I nodded at the cashier when I checked out. She was young, maybe 19 or 20, with tired eyes and a name tag that said Jessica. She smiled at me, a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. A smile she had given 1,000 times that day. I smiled back. We didn't speak beyond the necessary transaction. Thank you. Have a nice day. You too. Words without meaning. I drove home in silence. No radio, no music, no podcasts. Just the sound of the engine and the tires on asphalt, and the wind pressing against the car. When I got home, I put the groceries away, each item in its designated place. I folded the paper bag and placed it in the drawer with the others. A neat stack of brown bags I would never use. I washed my hands. I dried them on the same dish towel I'd been using for a week. And then I sat down on the couch. The same spot I always sat, the cushion worn and sunken from years of my wait. And that's when it happened. It started with a tightness in my chest. A pressure. Like someone was pressing their fist into my ribs, slowly, deliberately, applying more and more force. I thought it was indigestion. I thought maybe I'd eaten something bad, though I hadn't eaten anything all day except a piece of toast that morning. But then the pain spread. It moved like fire through my body, down my left arm, sharp and electric, up into my jaw, radiating through my teeth. My vision blurred. The room tilted. The walls seemed to bend inward, closing around me. I tried to stand, thinking if I could just get to the phone, if I could just call for help, everything would be okay. But my legs wouldn't hold me. They buckled, and I collapsed onto the floor. The carpet was rough against my cheek. I could smell dust and old fabric softener and something else. Something metallic that I later realized was my own fear. I could hear the clock on the wall ticking. Tick, tick, tick. Each second louder than the last. Each second feeling like an eternity. Like the universe counting down to something I couldn't stop. I tried to reach for the phone. It was on the coffee table. Just a few feet away. But it might as well have been on the moon. My arm wouldn't move. My fingers wouldn't respond. They twitched uselessly, grasping at air. I opened my mouth to call for help, but no sound came out. Just a shallow breath. And then another. Shorter. Weaker. And then nothing. The pain stopped. The tightness released. And for a moment I felt relief. A strange, floating relief. But it wasn't the relief of healing. It wasn't the relief of recovery. It was the relief of letting go. Of surrendering. Of finally stopping the fight I didn't even know I was waging. I don't remember the exact moment I died. There was no dramatic flash of light. No tunnel stretching into infinity. No choir of angels singing hallelujah. Just a quiet separation. Like stepping out of a heavy coat on a warm day. Like taking off shoes that had been too tight for too long. I was still on the floor. I could see my body. My hand stretched toward the phone, fingers curled like claws. My eyes half open, staring at nothing. My mouth slightly parted, frozen in a silent gasp. I looked small, fragile, insignificant. Like a shell that had been left behind. Like a house someone had moved out of. And I felt nothing for it. No sadness. No fear. No attachment. The dust particles in the air caught the light and sparkled like tiny stars. Like galaxies spinning in slow motion. Everything was alive. Even the stillness. Even the silence had a pulse, a rhythm, a presence. I turned toward the window. And that's when I saw it. A light. Not from the sun. Not from the lamp. Not from any earthly source. It was coming from somewhere else. Somewhere beyond the glass. Beyond the trees. Beyond the sky. Beyond the world I had known. It was warm. It was soft. The floor beneath me became something else. Something soft and infinite and impossible to describe. Like walking on clouds. Like walking on music. Like walking on the breath of God. And then I was outside. But it wasn't the outside I knew. The sky was no longer gray. It was golden. Not the harsh gold of sunset. Not the cheap gold of jewelry. But a living gold. A breathing gold. A gold that seemed to have consciousness, intelligence, love woven into every particle. The air itself seemed to glow. And there was music. Not music with instruments or voices or melodies you could hum, but a sound that felt like joy, like peace, like home. Like every good thing you've ever felt distilled into sound waves that passed through you and changed you. I kept walking, and with each step I felt lighter. The weight I had carried for so long, the grief for Thomas, the loneliness, the regret, the fear, the bitterness, the disappointment. It was all falling away, like layers of old skin, like shedding clothes made of lead. And underneath, I was new. I was whole. I was free. I was awake. I was everything I was always meant to be. And then I saw it. The presence. It wasn't a person. It wasn't Jesus in robes with long hair and a beard like the paintings in church. It wasn't a shape or a figure or anything I could describe with words that exist in human language. It was energy. Pure. Radiant. Infinite. Boundless. It filled everything. It was in the light. In the air. In the ground. Not physically, because I'm not sure I had a physical form anymore. But spiritually. Emotionally. The weight of being seen. The overwhelming reality of being known. Fully known. Every thought. Every doubt. Every secret. Every shame. Every lie I told myself. Every mask I wore. Every wall I built. The presence knew it all. Saw it all. And it didn't judge. It didn't condemn. It didn't turn away. It just loved. Fully. Completely. Unconditionally. Without reservation. Without condition. I want to understand. And then everything changed. The golden light around me began to shift. To move. To form shapes. Images. Memories. But they weren't mine. At least not in the way I remembered them. They were the same moments from my life, but seen from a different angle. From a different perspective. From the presence's perspective. From the perspective of eternity. And the first vision I saw was this. I was 8 years old. It was Sunday morning. Early autumn. The air was crisp and cool. I was watching a fly circle above the altar, buzzing in erratic patterns. And I was thinking about how even the fly seemed more free than I felt. And my mother leaned over and whispered in my ear, her breath smelling like coffee and mints. Pay attention, Margaret. God is watching. And I remember feeling afraid, feeling small, feeling like I was being scrutinized by an invisible force that saw every bad thought, every wrong step, every imperfection. I remember thinking that I had to be perfect. I had to perform. I had to earn love. But in this vision, I saw something else. Something I never saw that day. I saw the presence. It was there. In the church. Not on the altar. Not in the sermon. But beside me. Sitting right next to me on that hard wooden pew. And it wasn't watching me with judgment. It wasn't keeping score. It wasn't waiting for me to mess up. It was watching me with tenderness. With patience. With delight. Like a parent watching a child learn to walk. And it whispered, not in words but in feeling, I don't need you to perform, little one. I just need you to be. I just need you to exist. You are enough. You have always been enough. You will always be enough. The vision faded, and I stood there in the golden light, weeping, understanding washing over me like waves. God wasn't keeping score. He never was. I had spent my whole life trying to be good enough, trying to earn love, trying to prove my worth, trying to measure up to some impossible standard I had created in my mind. But love isn't earned. It's given. Freely. Endlessly. Without condition. Without strings. Without transactions. And I had missed it. I had missed the whole point. The second vision came quickly, rising up like a memory pulled from deep water. I was 23 years old, young and angry and hurt. I was standing in a hospital room. The walls were pale green. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The smell of antiseptic burned my nostrils. My father was in the bed. He was dying. Lung cancer. Stage 4. He had been a smoker his whole life, 2 packs a day for 40 years, and now his body was paying the price. His skin was yellow. His eyes were sunken. His breathing was labored. I sat beside him, holding his hand. His skin was papery and cold. He looked at me with tired eyes that had seen too much pain and not enough joy. And he said in a voice barely above a whisper, I'm sorry, Maggie. I'm sorry I wasn't a better father. I'm sorry I didn't know how to love you the way you needed. And I said, automatically, reflexively, without thinking, it's okay, Dad. It's okay. But I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it at all. I was angry. I was hurt. He had been distant my whole life. Cold. Absent. He worked long hours at the factory. He came home tired and silent. He drank beer in front of the television. He never asked about my day. He never came to my school plays. He never told me he was proud of me. And even in that moment, standing beside his deathbed, watching him slip away, I couldn't forgive him. I held his hand, but my heart was closed. I said the right words, but I didn't feel them. And he died 3 days later. Alone. While I was at home, too cowardly to sit with him in those final hours. In the vision, I saw the presence standing behind me. Its light was soft, gentle, warm, and it placed a hand on my shoulder. And it said, "He was broken too, Margaret. Just like you. Just like everyone. He was wounded before you ever met him. And you were the only thing that held him together. You were the only light in his darkness." And I saw something I had never seen before. I saw my father's life. His childhood. Growing up with a violent father who beat him and told him he was worthless. Growing up in poverty. Growing up without love. I saw him as a young man, trying to be different. Trying to break the cycle. Trying to love me in the only way he knew how. Which was to provide. To work. To put food on the table and a roof over our heads. He didn't know how to express emotion. He didn't know how to hug. He didn't know how to say I love you because no one ever said it to him. And I saw the moments I didn't see before. The times he stood outside my bedroom door at night, his hand raised to knock, wanting to say goodnight. Wanting to tuck me in, but not knowing how, afraid I would reject him. So he just stood there in the hallway, and then walked away. The times he watched me from the window as I played in the yard, a small smile on his face, proud, but unable to express it, afraid that if he showed emotion he would seem weak. The times he wept alone in his car in the factory parking lot, feeling like a failure, feeling like he wasn't enough, wishing he could be the father I deserved, but not knowing how. And I wept. I wept for him. I wept for me. I wept for all the lost moments, all the wasted opportunities, all the words that were never said. Not because I was sad, but because I finally understood. Forgiveness isn't about erasing the past. It's not about saying what happened was okay. It's about seeing the whole picture. It's about recognizing that we are all broken. We are all wounded. We are all doing the best we can with the tools we were given. And choosing love anyway. Choosing compassion anyway. Choosing to let go of the bitterness because holding on to it only poisons your own heart. The third vision was harder, sharper, more painful. I was 37 years old. I was sitting in my car outside a small coffee shop on Main Street. It was raining. The windshield wipers moved back and forth in a rhythmic pattern. Inside the coffee shop through the foggy windows, I could see my best friend, Claire Donovan. We had been inseparable since college. We had been roommates. We had been bridesmaids at each other's weddings. We had held each other through breakups and heartbreaks and losses. She was sitting at a table near the window with a woman I didn't know. The woman had short dark hair and was laughing, her head thrown back. Claire was laughing too. They were animated, engaged, connected. And I felt a sharp jealousy, a bitter resentment. A dark, ugly feeling that I was ashamed of, but couldn't suppress. Claire and I had been drifting apart for months. She had gotten a new job. She had new friends. She was busy. She was moving forward. And I felt left behind. I felt replaced. I felt forgotten. I didn't go inside the coffee shop that day. I sat in my car, watching them through the rain-streaked window, feeling sorry for myself. And then I drove home, and I never told Claire how I felt. I never reached out. I never called. I never texted. I just let the distance grow. I let the friendship fade. I let silence fill the space between us. And I blamed her. I told myself she was the one who changed. She was the one who pulled away. She was the one who abandoned me. But that wasn't the truth. In the vision, The presence showed me something I had never considered. It showed me Claire sitting alone in her apartment 6 months later. It was late at night. She was on her couch, staring at her phone, scrolling through old photos of the two of us. Photos from college. Photos from vacations. Photos from silly nights out. And she was crying. Quietly. Wondering what she'd done wrong. Wondering if I was mad at her. Wondering if she'd said something or done something to offend me. It showed me the text messages she typed and deleted. "Hey Maggie, just checking in. Is everything okay? Miss you." It showed me the voicemail she almost left, her finger hovering over the call button before chickening out. It showed me the nights she cried because she missed me, but didn't know how to reach me. Didn't know how to bridge the gap that had formed between us. And the present said, "Love requires courage, Margaret. Love requires vulnerability. Love requires you to be brave enough to say, I miss you, I need you, I'm scared of losing you. And you chose fear. You chose pride. You chose silence. And both of you suffered because of it. I broke. I sobbed. Because I realized that so much of my pain, so much of my loneliness, so much of my isolation was self-inflicted. I had built walls to protect myself, but those walls didn't just keep others out. They kept me trapped inside. They kept me alone. They kept me small. And I had blamed everyone else for my loneliness, when the truth was, I was the architect of my own prison. The fourth vision was quieter, smaller in scope, but no less profound. I was 58 years old. It was a Tuesday afternoon in March. I was walking down the main street in Ridgemont. It was raining. A cold, miserable rain that soaked through your clothes and chilled you to the bone. I had an umbrella. A large, black umbrella that kept me dry. A young man was sitting on the sidewalk against a brick wall. He was homeless. I could tell by his dirty clothes, by the cardboard sign beside him, by the hollow look in his eyes. He was wet, shivering, his hair plastered to his head. His hands were red from the cold. He looked up at me as I passed, and he said, his voice hoarse and desperate, "Excuse me, ma'am, do you have any spare change? Anything at all would help." And I said, without breaking stride, without looking him in the eye, "Sorry, I don't carry cash." It was a lie. I had a $20 bill in my purse. I had just taken it out of the ATM that morning. But I didn't want to stop. I didn't want to engage. I didn't want to see him. I didn't want to acknowledge him. Because acknowledging him would mean acknowledging the suffering in the world. And I was comfortable in my ignorance. So I walked past, and I forgot about him 5 minutes later. I went home. I made dinner. I watched television. And I never thought about that young man again. In the vision, the presence showed me what happened next. The young man sat in the rain for another 3 hours. No one stopped. No one helped. A few people dropped coins into his cup, but no one looked at him. No one spoke to him. No one treated him like a human being. Eventually, he stood up. He walked to the bridge on the edge of town, the old iron bridge that spanned the river. He stood at the edge, looking down at the dark water below, and he thought about jumping. He thought about ending it all, about giving up, about surrendering to the pain and the loneliness and the despair that had become his constant companions. He didn't jump. At the last moment, something held him back. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was the presence itself, wrapping around him, whispering, "Wait, not yet, there's still more for you." But he came close. So close. And the presence said to me, "You were the one, Margaret. You were the one I sent. You were the appointment. You were the divine intervention. I was working through you, and you walked away. You prioritized your comfort over his life. You chose indifference over love, and he almost died because of it." I fell to my knees. I had no excuse, no defense, no justification. I had been so consumed with my own comfort, my own safety, my own small insulated world, that I had missed the divine appointments. The moments when I was supposed to be the hands and feet of love. The moments when God was trying to work through me to touch someone else. And I had failed. Not because I was evil. Not because I was cruel. But because I was asleep. Because I was numb. Because I'd become so accustomed to walking past suffering that I didn't even see it anymore. The fifth vision was the most beautiful. And the most painful. I was 61 years old. It was a Sunday morning in spring. The sun was shining. The birds were singing. Flowers were blooming. It was one of those perfect days that makes you believe in grace. I was sitting in church. The same church I'd attended for 40 years. The same third-row pew on the left side. The pastor was speaking about the love of God. About grace. About redemption. About how God sees us not for who we are but for who we're becoming. It was a beautiful sermon. Inspiring. Moving. And I was sitting there with my hands folded in my lap, nodding along, agreeing with every word. But inside, I felt nothing. I was there out of habit. Out of obligation. Out of tradition. Out of fear that if I stopped going, I would somehow be less worthy. Less saved. Less loved. Less acceptable to God and to the community. I was going through the motions. Checking the box. Fulfilling the requirement. But my heart wasn't engaged. My spirit wasn't present. I was thinking about what I was going to make for lunch. I was thinking about the laundry I needed to do. I was thinking about a crossword puzzle clue I couldn't solve. I was everywhere except where I was. And the presence showed me something I hadn't noticed. In the row directly behind me there was a young woman. She was maybe 25 years old. She had long brown hair. She was wearing a simple dress. And she was crying. Quietly. Her shoulders shaking. She was holding a tissue to her face, trying to muffle the sound. She was alone. No one sitting beside her. No one holding her hand. No one comforting her. She was hurting. Deeply. Profoundly. Her pain was radiating off her like heat. And no one turned around. No one reached out. No one saw her. The people around her were too focused on the sermon, on the worship, on their own spiritual experience. They were so busy trying to connect with God that they missed God sitting right behind them. Crying, bleeding, broken, except the presence. It was there, sitting right beside her. Its light wrapped around her like a blanket. Its energy surrounding her like protective arms. And it whispered, not in words but in feeling. I see you. I'm here. You are not alone. You matter. You are loved. You are precious. And then the vision shifted. It showed me an alternate timeline. It showed me what would have happened if I had turned around. If I had noticed her. If I had placed my hand on her shoulder and said, "Are you okay? Do you need to talk? Do you want to get coffee after the service?" The young woman would have broken. The dam would have burst. She would have told me her story. About the boyfriend who beat her. About the addiction she was struggling with. About the shame she carried. About the abortion she had 2 years ago that she couldn't forgive herself for. About the voice in her head that told her she was worthless, unlovable, beyond redemption. And I would have listened. Really listened. Not with judgment. Not with advice. Not with platitudes. Just with presence. And I would have prayed with her. And I would have connected her to resources. To a counselor. To a support group. To a community of people who had walked through similar darkness and found their way to the light. And her life would have changed. Not overnight. Not magically. But gradually. One small step at a time. One choice at a time. One moment of courage at a time. Not because of me, but because the presence would have used me. Because I would have been the conduit, the vessel, the instrument, and I didn't turn around. I sat there, comfortable, complacent, focused on my own spiritual experience. And she left that church feeling more alone than when she arrived. And 2 weeks later, she tried to kill herself. She survived, but barely. And the presence said, This is the question, Margaret. Not whether you believed in me. Not whether you went to church. Not whether you said the right prayers or followed the right rules. But whether you let me live through you. Whether you were willing to be my hands, my feet, my voice, my love made manifest in the world. Faith without works is dead. Belief without action is meaningless. You cannot love God and ignore His children. You cannot claim to follow me and walk past suffering. You cannot say you're mine and remain asleep. I collapsed. I wept. I screamed. Not out of anger, but out of realization. Out of recognition. Out of the overwhelming weight of understanding. I had wasted so much time. So much energy. So much life. Trying to be good. Trying to follow the rules. Trying to check the boxes. Trying to earn my way into heaven. But I had missed the point entirely. Faith isn't a transaction. It's a transformation. It's not about what you do on Sunday morning. It's about who you are Monday through Saturday. It's not about believing the right things. It's about becoming the right person. A person who sees, who loves, who acts, who risks, who chooses compassion over comfort, who chooses courage over safety, who chooses love over fear. And I had remained unchanged, untransformed, unawakened. A stone in the river, resisting the current, refusing to be shaped by the water that flowed around me. And the presence held me. It didn't scold. It didn't lecture. It didn't condemn. It just held me. Its energy wrapped around me like the embrace of a parent who has been waiting for their child to come home. And I stayed there for what felt like hours, or days, or years. Time didn't exist in that place. There was only presence, only love, only understanding. And after a long while, it spoke again. Margaret. Do you understand now? I nodded. Yes. Yes, I understand. I see it. I see what I missed. I see what I could have been. I see what I should have been. And it said, the 3 seconds that decide eternity aren't the 3 seconds of death. They're the 3 seconds of choice. Every moment you're alive, you have 3 seconds to choose. To see or to ignore. To love or to fear. To act or to walk away. To be present or to be absent. And those 3 seconds add up. They become minutes. They become hours. They become days and years and a lifetime. And that lifetime becomes eternity. Every choice matters. Every moment is sacred. Every 3 seconds is a door. And you get to choose which way you walk through it. I looked up at the presence. Its light was blinding and comforting all at once. It was fire and water. It was power and gentleness. It was everything and nothing. And I asked, my voice small and broken, is it too late for me? Am I beyond redemption? Did I fail? And it smiled. Not with a mouth, but with an energy that filled everything around me. A joy that radiated like warmth from the sun. And it said, it's never too late, beloved. As long as you have breath, you have opportunity. As long as you have life, you have choice. I'm sending you back. No. No, please. I don't want to go back. I want to stay here. I want to stay with you. Here where everything is clear. Here where everything is light. Here where I finally understand. But the presence shook its head. Or the energy shifted. Or the light dimmed slightly. However it communicated, it was firm. Not yet, Margaret. You still have work to do. There are 3 seconds waiting for you. There are appointments you haven't kept. There are lives you haven't touched. There are words you haven't spoken. There are choices you haven't made. And this time, you'll be awake. This time you'll see. This time you'll choose love. And then the light began to fade. The golden sky dimmed. The music quieted. The warmth receded. And I felt myself being pulled backward, downward, inward. Like being dragged by a current I couldn't resist. I tried to hold on. I tried to resist. I reached out for the presence, desperate to stay, desperate to remain in that place of perfect understanding. But the pull was too strong. And suddenly I was falling falling through layers of color and sound, falling through dimensions I couldn't comprehend, falling through time and space, falling back toward the world I'd left behind, falling back into the heavy coat I'd shed. And then, impact. Not physical, but spiritual. Like being slammed back into a body that suddenly felt unbearably heavy. And then, pain. Sharp, burning, unbearable, shooting through every nerve, every cell, every fiber of my being. I gasped. My lungs filled with air. Painful air. Air that burned like fire as it rushed in. My heart pounded in my chest. Erratic, violent, like it was trying to escape my ribcage. My eyes flew open. The light was harsh, too bright, too sharp. Everything was too much, too loud, too intense, too real. I was on the floor, the same rough carpet against my cheek, the same coffee table looming above me, the same clock ticking on the wall. Tick, tick, tick. But everything was different. I was different. I could feel everything. The weight of my body, the ache in my chest, the pain in my arm, the texture of the carpet, the temperature of the air, the sound of my own breathing. Everything was vivid, intense, overwhelming, and I cried. Not from pain. They started CPR. They shocked my heart. Once, twice, 3 times. And on the 3rd time, it started again. They revived me. They put me on a stretcher. They loaded me into an ambulance. They took me to the hospital. I remember fragments, flashes, the ceiling of the ambulance, the fluorescent lights, the mask over my face, the beeping of machines, the urgent voices of the paramedics. Hold on. Stay with us. You're going to be okay. The doctors said it was a miracle, that I had been clinically dead for almost 4 minutes, that at my age, with that kind of cardiac arrest, there should have been brain damage, significant brain damage, memory loss, cognitive impairment, motor function issues. But there was nothing. I was fine. Better than fine. They couldn't explain it. They ran tests. They did scans. They checked and rechecked. And everything was normal. Better than normal, actually. My heart was stronger than it had been in years. And when I woke up in the hospital bed 2 days later, the first thing I did was cry. Not because I was in pain, not because I was scared, but because I was grateful. Grateful to be alive. Grateful to have another chance. Grateful to finally be awake. The first few days were hard. My body was weak. My chest ached with every breath. I could barely walk without assistance. My muscles had atrophied. My energy was depleted. But my heart was on fire. Not physically, spiritually. I couldn't stop thinking about the visions. About the presence. About the 3 seconds. About the choices I'd made and the choices I hadn't. About the life I'd lived and the life I could have lived. And I knew. I knew with absolute certainty that I had to change. Not someday. Not eventually. Not when I felt better or when things settled down. But now. Immediately. Urgently. Because every moment mattered. Every 3 seconds was an opportunity. And I'd been given a gift. A second chance. A long, heavy pause. And then I said, the words tumbling out in a rush. Claire, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. For all the years I let slip away. For not reaching out. For not being brave enough to tell you I missed you. For letting pride and fear keep me silent. For wasting time we can never get back. I was wrong. I was so wrong. And I don't know if you can forgive me. But I had to tell you. I had to let you know. There was silence on the other end. And for a moment, I thought she'd hung up. But then I heard it. A sob. A quiet, broken sob. And then she said, Oh, Maggie. Oh, Maggie, I missed you too. I missed you so much. I thought I'd done something wrong. I thought you hated me. And we talked. We talked for 2 hours. We cried. We laughed. We shared everything that had happened in the years we'd lost. We talked about her new job, about her new friends who didn't replace me but added to her life, about her struggles and her joys. And I told her about Thomas, about the loneliness, about the death and the visions and the presence. And she listened, really listened. And when we finally hung up, we made plans to meet, to have coffee, to start again. Not to recapture what we lost, but to build something new. And when I hung up the phone, I felt lighter. Like a chain I didn't even know I was carrying had been cut. Like a weight had been lifted. Like I could breathe again. The second thing I did was go back to that street. The street where I had walked past the homeless man, where I had chosen comfort over compassion. It was a Wednesday afternoon. The sun was shining. I walked slowly, my body still recovering, still weak. And I looked for him, but he wasn't there. The spot where he had been sitting was empty. Just a patch of sidewalk. No sign he had ever been there. But there was someone else, an older woman sitting on a bench near the bus stop. Her coat was thin and worn. Her shoes had holes in them. Her face was weathered and tired. She was holding a small bag, probably everything she owned. I sat down beside her. She looked at me with wary eyes. Eyes that had learned not to trust, not to hope. "Can I sit here?" I asked. She nodded. We sat in silence for a moment. And then I said, "What's your name?" She hesitated. "Rose. My name is Margaret." We talked. I asked about her life, her story. She told me she had been a teacher once, that she had lost her job when the school closed, that she had lost her apartment when she couldn't pay rent, that she had family, but they had given up on her, that she was tired, so tired. And I listened. I didn't offer advice. I didn't preach. I just listened. And when she finished, I said, "Can I buy you lunch?" Her eyes filled with tears. She nodded. We walked to a small diner. I bought her a hot meal, soup and a sandwich and coffee. She ate slowly, savoring every bite. And when she was done, I gave her my phone number. I wrote it on a napkin. If you ever need anything, a meal, a coat, someone to talk to, you call me, okay? She looked at the napkin like it was made of gold, and she said, her voice breaking, "Thank you. You don't know how much this means." But I did know, because I had been shown, and I was determined to never walk past again. The third thing I did was go back to church, but this time, I didn't sit in the third row with my hands folded and my heart closed. I sat in the back, and I looked around, really looked. I saw the single mother in the second row, struggling to keep her 3 young children quiet, stress and exhaustion written all over her face. I saw the elderly man sitting alone in the corner, his suit too big for his shrinking frame, his eyes distant and sad. I saw the teenager in the front row, her arms covered in bracelets that I knew were hiding scars. I saw the young woman crying in the row behind where I used to sit. And after the service, I didn't rush out to beat the traffic. I didn't hurry home to my comfortable routine. I stayed. I walked up to the single mother. I introduced myself. I offered to help with her kids, to babysit, to give her a break. She looked at me with shock and gratitude. I walked up to the elderly man. I sat beside him. I asked his name. Gerald. We talked about his wife who had passed, about his children who lived far away and rarely called, about his loneliness. And I invited him to coffee. And he said yes. I walked up to the teenager. I told her I noticed her, that I saw her, that she mattered, and she cried. And slowly, week by week, month by month, I became part of something bigger than myself. Not a religion, not an institution, but a family. A living, breathing expression of the presence I had encountered. A community of broken people choosing to love each other anyway. And every day, I practiced. I practiced the 3 seconds. When someone asked for help, I paused for 3 seconds. I looked them in the eye. And I chose. Yes. How can I help? When I felt anger or resentment rising inside me, I paused for 3 seconds. I took a breath. And I chose. Compassion. Understanding. Forgiveness. When I was tempted to judge or criticize or gossip, I paused for 3 seconds. And I chose. Love. Grace. Silence. And with each choice I became more awake. More alive. More present. More like the person I was always meant to be. It's been 4 years since I died. 4 years since I was sent back. And I won't lie to you. Life is still hard. The world is still broken. People still hurt. Injustice still exists. Suffering is still real. I still have bad days. Days when I'm tired. Where I used to see endings, I now see beginnings. I love differently. Not conditionally. Not transactionally. Not based on what people can do for me. But freely. Generously. Without keeping score. I live differently. Not for myself. Not for comfort. Not for safety. But for others. For purpose. For meaning. For the divine appointments that present themselves every single day. And I know. I know with absolute certainty, with every fiber of my being, with a conviction that can never be shaken, that eternity isn't some far-off place you go when you die. It's here. It's now. It's in the 3 seconds you have right in front of you. It's in the choice to see or to ignore. It's in the decision to love or to fear. It's in the moment you decide to be present or to be absent. Heaven and hell aren't destinations. They're states of being. Heaven is living awake, living connected, living in love. Hell is living asleep, living isolated, living in fear. And you choose. Every 3 seconds, you choose. For a long moment, I stood in the quiet between heaven and earth, not knowing which way I belonged, but knowing that every second mattered, that every choice was sacred, that every breath was a gift, that every moment was an opportunity to let the presence live through me, to be the answer to someone else's prayer, to be the light in someone else's darkness. If this story touched you, if something moved inside you while you were listening, if you felt that flutter in your chest, that whisper in your soul, I want you to do something. I need you to do something. Write the words True Light in the comments below. Not for me, not for the algorithm, not to make me feel good or to boost my numbers, but for yourself, as a reminder, as a commitment, as a declaration that you are choosing to wake up, that you are choosing to see, that you're choosing to love, that you're choosing to live. The light is still here, right now, in this moment. It's still speaking. It's still calling. It's still waiting. Waiting for you to notice. Waiting for you to respond. Waiting for you to say yes. And it's giving you 3 seconds, right now. This moment. Right here where you are. What will you choose? Will you walk past? Will you ignore? Will you stay asleep? Or will you pause? Will you see? Will you act? Will you love?